How you doing, everyone? My name is Sean O'Kane with Chip Estimate TV. We're here at TechCon 2015. My guest today, Mr. Brian Fuller, Editor-in-Chief at ARM, and of course, the ever-popular Mr. John Heinlein, Vice President, Corporate Marketing with ARM. Thanks,
Sean.
gents, for being here.
Thank you for having us.
I got to get two things out of the way. There's two birthdays to recognize. One is this guy, who just turned 39 years old. Looks pretty good.
Thank you, Sean. Checks in the mail.
And the 25th anniversary birthday for ARM.
Yeah, and Sean, it's indeed ARM as a company, our 25th anniversary, but we like to talk about how it's really the anniversary of the entire ARM partnership, because without the partners, we wouldn't be what we are today. So we appreciate the partners, and it's all of our birthday today.
Okay. And exciting things happening all week. Yesterday, you had Mike Muller, he's the Chief Technology Officer, talking about innovation is still thriving in semiconductors, and he's covering low power and architectural innovation all the way from sensors to servers and beyond. Pretty neat.
Really great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Mike sketched out a great vision for how we get to a secure IoT in all connected world. Security is now obviously the key, and it's got to go from silicon all the way up to servers. A non-trivial problem, as he laid out in his 50 minutes.
Yeah, he describes how experts in the field intending to do a secure solution can easily make mistakes. And so his challenge to the industry and to the room was, how do we make secure, less than $1 microcontroller designs designed by people with no security experience?
Yeah. And
so to that end, we announced a couple of new solutions. First was ARM v8M, which is the next generation architecture from ARM for microcontrollers. That's the M part. And that also includes a feature called Trust Zone, which we've had in the A-class processors, now for Cortex v8M processors as well, ARM v8M. So that's going to provide a better foundation of isolation of trusted environments versus non-trusted, and it's one of the key components to make it easier to deliver these solutions. We also talked about the evolution of the Mbed OS. There's a wonderful expo of the Mbed ecosystem here, which is incredibly vibrant and growing. More than 24 partner announcements around Mbed around the show this week.
Have you seen the Mbed wall?
Yeah.
It's like a tourist destination on the ARM TechCon floor.
Nice.
It has applications all up and down the wall of embedded technology, and people are doing selfies. And
very well. Very nice.
And and lest anyone think we've forgotten about mobile, oh no. Mike also announced the newest A-class processor. It's Cortex A35, and it's specifically targeted at not only incredible energy efficiency, it's the most energy efficient processor we've ever developed, but also very well targeted and positioned for mid-range to low-cost smartphones, which is a key growth area. We project over 1 billion low-cost and mid-range smartphones in 2020.
And you thought not too much was happening? It's all happening here.
And that was just Mike Muller.
And that was just Mike Muller. Now,
day one.
Day two, which was really cool. What I really liked was Simon Seegers opening with the quote from Da Vinci saying, "Everything connects to everything else," and the rise of design ecosystem. Pretty cool start.
500 years ago, right? He sort of presaged the last 25 years of the ARM community.
He's Nostradamus.
Right? And
that's who
innovation.
He is.
And so he sketched out his vision of how we're going to get to an all-secure IT. And his big message, of course, was we have to get it right now. This is our time to get it right. Because in technology evolutions in the past, security was a bolt-on, simply because of the nature of the way things were designed. It used to be a standalone PC or whatever. But we can't do that in IoT, right?
Yeah, and he talked about how this connectedness is very valuable, and he sketched out what he believes are 3 key principles for IoT to be successful. And if you achieve these principles, then we can have a thriving, market-based economy of IoT. Otherwise, if we get it wrong, you're going to have things like government over-regulation and or lack of consumer confidence. And his 3 key points were very simple. One is connected devices are valuable, but they only work and valuable if they're based on common standards, allow interoperability and scaling, as opposed to siloed approaches or proprietary solutions. 2, you have to embed security and trust from the ground up. And it's a multi-layered solution. It's not one component, it's throughout, from the very lowest level all the way up through the software stack to make security work. And then the third component was partnership, because no one company can solve the whole problem. We need to make a partnership, which is what this ARM TechCon is all about, fundamental to the IoT.
And so, speaking of partners, he had 3 panelists that he brought up at the end. Paul Beckwith from Progressive Group of Insurance Companies, Balaji Yellamachili of Symantec,
right,
of course, big in security, and then Kobe Sella from ARM. And they gave their perspectives on security, and I was particularly impressed with Balaji, because Balaji's like, it's got to be down in the silicon. He sort of mirrored that. It's got to be all through and through.
And, obviously Symantec's an incredibly successful company. He represents the enterprise part of Symantec, and where they're offering value-added services and software on top of these platforms. But he said the differences in the embedded market are such you have to bake it in from the beginning, because a lot of these deeply embedded applications, it's just not possible to fix it later. So you have to fix it from first principles.
And and going forward with day 2, what I really like is the diverse topics and the guest speakers, the keynotes that you have. This gentleman, Danny Kaye from 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, this was really cool.
Really
He's
great.
talking about AR and VR and the projects at
UHD.
Fox Innovation Labs, and how these entertainment palettes are going to be expanding new experiences for users. What a great topic. Can you expand a little bit on Danny Kaye? Not the actor, but
Well, it's always a crowd pleaser when you start off with your movie sizzle reel, right? And so
That's
somebody
right.
starts off with that, but how is UHD, next generation content, going to get delivered to the home and delivered to various mobile devices? It's an extraordinary problem, right? Because internet bandwidth isn't scaling fast enough to catch up with the size of these files.
Yeah. And it's interesting because if you talk about that networking point first, we've been talking all year long about something we call the IFC, or the Intelligent Flexible Cloud. And one of the things we talked about there is you're going to see more and more opportunities to push content closer physically and closer in the network to endpoints. And it's actually a point he talked about. It's one of the elements of the solution is pre-pushing content so that when it's prime time and the latest movie's out that everyone is going to want to watch, you don't have to go all the way to the server back in the cloud, but actually you can distribute it around the network. We've been talking about that all year long. Right. He said that is one component of the solution. You're also going to see, in some cases, caching locally, which means whether set-top boxes or TVs or other kind of devices that have security built in. He talked about trust zone being a key element. They see that as integral to making sure that the content, when it's put in these devices, is safe and secure, but at the same time giving consumers a better experience.
Let's talk about day 3 and talk about broadening innovations, as you were touched on. You have Robert Clark and Eric Klein from Oracle and Lemnos Labs. Right. So, what are they going to be touching on? And you mentioned Robert earlier.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting flow actually, because our colleague Ian Ferguson is going to kick it off with a little discussion of a project we did with UNICEF. So that's going to kind of tee up this: how is the community broadening the innovation horizon? And then we go into Eric Klein from Lemnos Labs, who's going to tell us all about these various startups and what they're doing and how this ecosystem is enabling what they do. And then we go to Robert Clark of Oracle, who's going to talk about, well, how do we do this on the back end technologically?
Right, and they're really a perfect dovetail, because what Eric will talk about is, while you look at the problem of IoT and you say, oh, okay, well, there are now solutions out there. Actually, he says, there's solutions to this part of the problem and this part of the problem, but these other sections are really early days where some people have, some companies have offered solutions, but there's a lot more innovation to come. And he literally draws a chart to map out the entire problem of IoT and what are the areas where there's still investment opportunities, and which is what he's doing.
Right.
And similarly with Robert Clark from Oracle, the idea is looking at how they can provide a better end-to-end service that marries up with the data collection from sensors and other kind of devices all the way through to end services, and how they can glue that together using Oracle's considerable knowledge about enterprise infrastructure and so on.
Let's continue with the IoT, and I've been saying I think ARM was one of the first companies to really take the IoT revolution to a bigger discussion, and that's what I saw in the past couple of years. And so also on day 3 you have Colt McCandless talking about hard things about the Internet of Things. So Talk a little bit about that.
I think his is going to be one of the most entertaining that ARM TechCon has ever had.
All right.
I'm not going to spoil it, but the first handful of slides are some of the funniest I've ever seen.
Don't come late to his talk.
All right.
But then he's going to go into the hard things about the Internet of Things, right? I mean, think about walking through a mall where every sort of mall store is going to want to ping you with offers and that sort of stuff. How does your phone deal with it? Do you want to be taxed as a user for cellular, for other kinds of data, and for battery? No. So he's going to talk about how we might architect that.
Wow.
He steps back and looks. If you look at the idea in isolation, some of these ideas seem, obviously good ideas. But when you roll them up to them being successful, if we don't do it right, it can become something that's not scalable. So he looks at it from a perspective of battery. He looks at it from a perspective of data consumption and users, data plans and so on, and also into things like compression and other kind of algorithms. So he takes a real developer's perspective and saying, we as developers have to look at the whole problem and say, how do we manage these solutions to give the users what they want and the companies the chance to innovate that they want, but not do it in a way that's not effective.
Excellent. What a great overview of ARM TechCon 2015, day 1, 2, and 3. Still more to come. So appreciate you being with us. For Brian Fuller and John Heinlein, my name is Sean O'Kane, and we'll see you next time, real soon, on Chip Estimate TV.